All right, everyone, welcome to part two for our conversation with me, Emee, and Tracy Tully. Sorry, we actually just got cut while Tracy was telling us about all the wonderful things that she's still learning and doing at her age. So, Tracy, tell us. So you said you have a lot of activities going on in your life right now. So could you give us a quick recap on that, and why are you still doing these things at your age?
Mm. It's interesting. That's a really good question you asked, Emee, because I'm naturally the sort of person who is very curious. In fact, that's my word for 2020, the curiosity, and to be a lifelong learner. I feel that I can pack in as much as I can in my lifetime, then I'll be the best that I could possibly be. So in terms of a lot of the different things I currently do have all stemmed from where I've come from. So as an educator in very violent schools, in rural and isolated schools, without resources and without money, I found I had to be proactive in how I helped students learn in different modes to what was the norm. So our norm here, where in the state of Australia I'm living in, is quite male dominated and doesn't really help students across a range of activities. So what I found was we suffered from a lot of anger, incredible anger and violence, physical violence, where it'd be nothing for us to have 2 full-on physical fistfights a day. And in a high school, my boys were big. They were equivalent to men. And I found that whilst there are all these subjects there for the young males in the school, there wasn't a lot for the women. And so I started up hairdressing. And to introduce hairdressing into this particular state in education was a no-no. But what I did was we had a high obesity problem, low attendance, poor attention, a whole range of things. And so I thought that if I could affect a change with a student at the school gate and meet them at the school gate and distract their mindset from the negative, angry person, because a lot of these kids came from homes that were very difficult to live in, didn't have food and a whole range of other things. So if I could distract them with something so that their day improved. So for me to be able to introduce these subjects into a school like hairdressing, I had to become a hairdresser first myself. So I brought in hairdressing, I brought in beauty as well. And I found that both male and female students sort out the subjects. Now, these were the students with what we call vocational education here in Australia, they're trades subjects. And these were students who are looking for a path, and it just wasn't there in your normal curriculum. And it had a huge effect on the school. And the trickle effect was unbelievable, even to myself. Obesity changed considerably. Students would meet with me in the morning at the gate, and I'll be checking out their makeup because I'm a huge advocate of wearing makeup with a high SPF because we have a high rate of sun cancer here. So all of a sudden they were hearing me saying, I don't mind if you wear makeup, but I don't want to see panda eyes. If you wear makeup, you'll honour yourself and you'll wear it with style and you'll look your best. And all of a sudden I had these students feeling good. And if they weren't feeling good, I'd say, how about you pop over to the beauty room at lunchtime and the girls will help you do something with your face, whatever. And I had half and half, literally girls and boys. So it was a great introduction. So whilst I was including these subjects for what we call VET kids or vocational education kids, on the other extreme, I was bringing in astrophysics. At the highest level.
So we you're actually tapping into different interests, yes. And because you have this wide range of, some students might be good in maths and sciences and, the traditional academic route, but there are people who are good with their bodies, they're good with the space and creativity. So we should be able to acknowledge what lights people up and what makes them, what they are good at and tap into that and develop it.
Absolutely, and I feel it, and so then I naturally progress, and being an educator as a high school principal, I still enjoyed the creative side of the world. So doing what some people would call mundane. I'll never forget a boss saying to me one day, much to his detriment, "Why hairdressing, Tracy?" And
Hmm.
I said, "Why not?" But
Why not? Exactly.
he could not understand it. And I said, "Look at the statistics and the data that I've presented you." It speaks for itself.
Hmm.
But I followed through. And so when I decided to leave education, I wanted to do something with my life. And I always wanted to do cosmetic tattooing or microblading. And this was just the next step for me. But I didn't think I could find anyone in Australia to learn from. I thought I'd have to go overseas to Europe. But I did finally find someone, and so I do that as well. And it's a beautiful skill. And microblading, so if you see my eyebrows are all microblading, because of my age, you lose half your eyebrows. I'm a horsewoman, so I had a few knocks and bumps along the way and accidents where you got a scar here and there. And and so then I morphed into helping women with hair thinning and men who are with receding hairlines. So I do what's called scalp micropigmentation every day. So a client, for example, I had yesterday, she presented with hair thinning, zero eyebrows because she's had 2 bouts of breast cancer, and with the radiation and the chemo, she has no eyebrows, and she has no areolas. And
Hmm.
so we were able to talk and do a plan for her. And by the time she finished with me yesterday, it was a long day, but she looked and felt beautiful. And all of a sudden she said, "I'm going to sashay out here." And she's a truck driver. And she's a truck driver in a feedlot. So I cut her hair and I did a whole range of things to make her feel good. And for me, that's my mantra: serving other people. So
Yes.
I do lots and lots of different jobs, and
I think
one day to the
you're
next is
you're
different.
an embodiment of having a growth mindset, because you're
Mm.
actually open to learning and exploring possibilities.
Yeah,
And just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean that you can't do it at all. You can actually learn
correct.
and adopt new skills, and as you keep practicing and learn about it, you actually grow and develop as a result,
Mm.
rather than just confining yourself with what's already set. You're opening up to possibilities, and you're exploring what else you can do. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. And what you've done in the schools as well, it does take me back from the time when I was working in London. I used to work in the community engagement and health promotion sector. And when it comes to health promotion and health and well-being, it's not just the physical aspects, it's a more holistic approach. And
Yeah.
when you actually raise people's aspirations, when you make them feel good, all the other physical, healthy, whatever healthy means for most people, whether it's just to do with their body mass index, or
Mm.
it's not just that, it's a more holistic approach to health and well-being. And when you raise aspirations, when you make people feel good about themselves, and you raise their self-worth, everything else, the confidence, this will follow. And all the healthier habits of healthy eating and taking good care of their physical bodies, that will actually come as well. I do remember some of our projects. You wouldn't think that it would be a health promotion project, but it would be about gardening, for example. You take people out to do a bit of gardening, and you can see that the obesity levels fall, because it's
Mm.
not just about going out in the garden and
Mm.
doing stuff with your hands. It's also actually coming together as a community. You talk, you have more social cohesion. You talk about your dreams, your aspirations. If you have challenges in your life, you have someone to talk to. So it actually adds that feel good element. It's not just a one stop approach. It's not just one thing to do. It's actually encompassing a more holistic approach. And having, opening up to these possibilities is wonderful. So it's
Mm.
great that we have this conversation, Trace, and you've tapped into, fixed mindset and growth mindset. This is certainly something that we talk a lot about here in the PAMI Code Facebook group, because when you have a growth mindset, it encourages you to
Mm.
learn and develop. If things are not going so well, it's actually okay. If you make mistakes, it's actually okay. If you're not good
Yes.
at something yet, it's okay. You can actually pick yourself up, continue to learn, to grow and develop, and get new skills. And when you actually feel as if you've maximized that particular aspect, you can actually
Mm.
continue and learn another one, and you keep growing and developing as a human being for that. So, Tracy, if there's one thing that you would like to leave our community, if there's one message that you would like to share with us, what would this be? Particularly in terms of goals and motivation and resilience. What would you like to leave with us?
I think if you find yourself in a position where the brakes are on, you're overwhelmed and anxious, then you need to work towards the brakes being off and the power on. So to drive forward, by taking yourself outside your comfort zone and accelerating then, or powering on to dominance for yourself, your life, and how you can influence others. So when we have the brakes on, we're centering and focusing on ourselves, working towards as you said, experiencing other opportunities and taking the brakes off and accelerating, powering on. So, yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you, Tracy. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
On my website, which is tracytully.com, they can find me on my Facebook. My personal page is Tracy Tully. My business page is Motivating Resilient Women. So they can find me on any of those areas, in those places, and have a chat either through Messenger or comment on a post. And they'll find that if they follow me on my personal Facebook, they'll see everything from racehorses to who knows what, because I share my life literally as it is, without fear of failure or care, actually. So,
You're an open book. That's
yes,
wonderful.
that's right.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Tracy. It's such an honor and privilege to actually listen to your story. And it's so inspiring that, you're adopting this truly, open, growth mindset. And we can see how you're flourishing in your life. And thank you for sharing this in our community as well. So everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you found that conversation helpful. You'll see I'll be inviting more inspiring people inside their community, and we'll continue with these conversations with Emee here in the PAMI Code Facebook group. Until then, take care and bye for now. Bye. All right, Tracy. So that was it. So that's me
It's good.
interviewing you. Now we do a
Yes.
swap.
I love
it'll
it. I
be
love
it'll be
this.
you interviewing me, and I'll continue recording. So I
Mm.
can send this to you, and yeah, you can just edit it as you see fit.
Absolutely. So this is just buffer for us as well. So how are you feeling? You ready for our discussion?
Yes, awesome.
Excellent. Righto. And hello and welcome to Tully Talks. I'm Tracy Tully, your host for today's podcast. And today I have with me Dr. Emee Estacio. And Emee is a psychologist, a key speaker and author, and she specializes in life transformation and leadership coaching, specifically around limiting beliefs. Emee is a world-renowned expert in psychology, and she's the author of Psychology in Your Life series, with titles like The Imposter Syndrome Remedy, Change Your Life for Good, and Fear is Not Your Enemy. You can realize why I'm very excited to speak to Emee today. So Emee has moved from a psychologist into entrepreneurship. And I'm very, very excited about talking about Emee and what she's been doing in her life. So, Emee, can you tell me a little bit about your business?
Oh, yes. Thanks for having me, Tracy. So, my business is actually called the PAMI Code. It comes from the Greek word PAMI. My husband is actually Greek, and I hear this from him all the time. He keeps saying PAMI, PAMI, PAMI. And literally in Greek, it means let's go together. And for us, it's just a reminder that in life, we can actually go together. Life is sweeter and more meaningful when we get to share it with each other, our hopes, our ambitions, our challenges. We can do this together. But at the same time, I've borrowed PAME and used the letters of PAME to refer to purpose, action, momentum, and energy. So that simply means that with whatever we do in life, we always have to remind ourselves of our purpose. Always remember your why and ground yourself in your why. And when you do that, you have to couple that with action, because if you're just thinking about, okay, I'm going to do this and actually not do it, it just stays in your head. You actually have to do something, take action, so it actually gets transmitted to the outside world. So you have purpose, you have action, you have to keep up the momentum, take one step at a time, and always remember to celebrate your wins, no matter how small. And in the end, you have to maintain energy, you have to sustain positive energy, practice gratitude, practice forgiveness, and reaching out to others and supporting each other, and maintain that positive energy in your life. So that's really what it is. It's the PAMI code. And I've written books about this, as you've mentioned, Change Your Life for Good, Imposter Syndrome Remedy, and Fear is Not My Enemy. And these are all based on the PAMI principles that we've just talked about.
That's fascinating. I really like the sound of that palmy, and the fact that it's come from a Greek culture too. That's interesting. So, with my research, I find that you've come from a psychologist to an entrepreneurial world now. So, tell me, what inspired you to break the rules and take a risk in business?
Yes, well, the truth is I've been in psychology for more than 20 years. I started when I was 15. I never really intended to study psychology, but when I was 15 years old, I actually got accepted into a medical program. I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor. But my mom, bless her, she said that, you might be a bit too young to go into med school. 15 years old, yes, you might be intellectually capable, but in terms of emotional intelligence, your social development, being in the medical school might be too much, too stressful for you as a child, because really technically I was a child at that time. So she suggested for me to, why don't you do a pre-med course first, take a pre-med course for 4 years. And after 4 years, if you still want to, you could continue and study medicine. So I followed her advice. I studied psychology for 4 years, loved it so much, forgot about medicine. And I decided to pursue psychology instead. So I originally come from the Philippines. I moved to the UK to do my master's and my PhD here in psychology. And it just continued. I just took that academic path because it just felt, I was comfortable. Since I was a child, I've always been a nerd. So I've been comfortable in the academic setting. So I did my PhD, did my postdoc, I became a lecturer. And for 10 years as a university lecturer, that was actually my comfort zone. So 20 years at the start of my career, this was what I was trained to do. I was teaching, I was doing research, I was writing textbooks, but somehow I felt as if it wasn't enough. It felt as if I was only speaking to a select number of people. I was talking to students, which is fantastic. I actually do enjoy teaching. But in terms of the research, yes, I was working with communities. I was doing community engagement, but the impact just wasn't there. I just had this feeling that it wasn't enough. At the same time, when I actually gave birth to my son, it felt as if the work-life balance, as an academic, it was a little bit off. Because as an academic, that's my identity. And sometimes you tend to lose the balance. The academic life takes over your life, and it is as if that's your only identity. And when I gave birth to my son, suddenly I'm also mom. I wasn't just me anymore. I'm also mom to this innocent little boy. And I sort of had an identity crisis at that time. I was thinking, okay, what am I gonna do with my life? I've prepared and set myself up to be an academic, but there was just, deep down I was feeling this is not good enough. Surely there's something more to life. So last year, I took that brave step and leapt out of academia. I was given the opportunity to do that. I took that. A lot of people got scared for me because, like, oh, what are you going to do now? And I said, well, now I'm going to explore new options. Academic life is not the only life available for me. I develop skills, I develop connections, I have a lot of experience that I could take on as an entrepreneur. Instead of working just for an institution, I could actually go out now and serve the world. With what I know in psychology, instead of just sharing it with university students, and instead of just sharing it with psychologists who already know about psychology, why not use what I know from psychology and write books that could help the masses? We have so many evidence-based techniques from psychology that we can apply in our day-to-day lives. Change your habits to develop your confidence, to overcome fear. And that's the reason why I've decided to write my own books, publish my own books, write it in a way that engages the masses, that are easy to understand, easy to apply. And that's exactly what I did. And people are asking me, are you going back to academia? Right now, the door is actually shut. I'm not saying that I'm not open to, doing a guest lectureship here and there. If I'm invited to do a lecture here and there, but I'm absolutely enjoying being an entrepreneur, having that freedom and control. And since I became an entrepreneur, I'm reaching out to more people, expanding my audience and making a bigger impact in this way, rather than confine myself in the four walls of a classroom.
I love it. I love your energy, and I love the topics of your books, especially the one that says fear is not your enemy. And as you know, my background is education as a high school principal in very, very difficult schools. Isolating the problems, the deeper problems for a lot of these students was fear of failure, fear of not having enough food, fear of not being accepted in society, and it goes on and on and on. And as you know, the ripple effects. So tell me, by taking this risk to change and become an entrepreneur, what changes have you seen in your business and in your industry as a result that led you to write that book?
Right. Yes. Yeah, I've decided to write my books because way back in academia, as I've said, we've been doing research, we've been writing articles and textbooks. Even before I wrote my self-published books, I was actually writing research papers, and I've been writing textbooks, but the audience was quite small. And the way we've written our material at the time is written in such a way that's full of jargon that can only be understood by people within that circle. So it's almost like you're preaching to the choir. You're not really making so much of an impact, and apply them more widely. So that's actually my main motivator for writing my books. Is I actually want to use what I know and write it in such a way that it would be easier to understand, not in lay people's terms, no, sorry, not in academic terms, but writing it in lay people's terms, so it would be applicable and practical, and they can use it in their day-to-day lives. Not that I'm disregarding the amazing work that academics do. I have huge respect for academics and for researchers who, who actually collect evidence, for example. So whatever we apply in practice is coming from evidence-based work, from the research that's coming out from universities. But for me, I think the frustration that I got was it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. So for me, for example, as a community-based researcher, there have been changes in the way research is funded. So for me, as a it's quite difficult to get research done. The kind of research that I want to do, the kind of research that I want to do with the community. It's not something that is easy to just do in a university context, because it doesn't quite fit, for example, in the agenda of that particular institution. So I felt as if I want to do something in the community, I can do it myself. I don't have to be in the confines of academia to do what I want to do with the community. And if I want to do research myself, I can do that myself. But yeah, in the university context, there are good things about being in an institution, being in academia, doing robust research and generating evidence for practice. But for me, I just really struggled as a community-based researcher, someone who actually wants to get things done without having to jump through hoops. Obviously we have the ethics committee, we have to go through ethics, but it just takes months and months, going through the paperwork. If you want to do something and make an impact, doing it in academia could be a bit slower than if you do it on the ground, with the community, sharing knowledge, sharing information. For me, as a self-published author, if I want to write a book and publish it, I upload it on Amazon, it goes live in 4 hours. Whereas taking the traditional academic route, I still write textbooks and I still write, I still publish work with traditional publishers, but it takes us years. It takes us about a year to write the book and 18 months, to prepare it for publication. Whereas with the self-publishing route that I took now, if I just want to share what I know and get people to apply it immediately, self-publishing, upload it within 4 hours, it's out. So for me, it just works. For some people, they're comfortable with academia, they're comfortable with doing research in that way, shaping future researchers and sharing information with colleagues. That's absolutely fine. But for me, I want bigger impact, I want a wider audience. And for me, entrepreneurship, that actually works better for me, and I have more opportunities to reach more people by becoming an entrepreneur.
I love it. I love it. It's just fabulous. I was speaking to a doctor in psychology here in Australia not long ago, and she's following the path that you're on, and she was saying she had to deregister. Is that the same for you?
That's interesting. No, I haven't deregistered. And I actually do have a lot of friends in
Yeah.
psychology who've gone before me. Who have been my source of inspiration, actually. That they've also come from the academic route, lecturing at universities and finding that frustration that it's actually quite limited. We haven't deregistered as a psychologist, because it's actually quite good to still be on the register and to be acknowledged and accredited for your training and for your expertise, because we actually did gain that. But it just means that instead of just being confined in the university setting, we can actually do and practice privately and do our own thing, really. But I'm not really sure, maybe you have different regulations there in Australia. Maybe there are limitations on what you can and can't do, if you are registered. So I'm just not quite sure, but for us, I'm still registered. I'm still a chartered psychologist, but it just means that instead of just teaching at the university, I actually get to teach online like this,
I love it.
and do group coaching, online coaching, and not just share what I know to students in my classroom, but actually
Mm.
share my message to the world.
Love it. Now, you mentioned that you're a mum and you've got a beautiful young 4-year-old boy. Now, being an educator, I have a notice, and a mum, what is missing, the huge gaps that are missing in curriculum. Now you have the time to reflect on what you might like to see offered in a curriculum for when your son heads to school. Can you tell us your thoughts around that?
To be perfectly honest, Tracy, I've considered homeschooling my kid.
Yes. Yeah.
My sister does that, and I actually admire her for, she has four wonderful children, and they are all homeschooled. So, it's a huge inspiration, to be able to design your own curriculum. And for me, coming from a
Mm.
non-traditional education system, when I was in high school, elementary, we had a non-graded system. So we weren't really it's a non-traditional school. We just have no
Mm.
grades. You
Mm.
it's a master. You move from one module to another, and until you master that particular module, you actually don't move on to the next. And the teachers they actually just give the module. You study at your own pace, and whenever you're ready, you get assessed. You even get to check your own stuff. You mark your own assessment, and when you actually fulfill the skill, you actually move on to the next. But since you asked about what I would like to be included in the curriculum, there's so much emphasis on science and mathematics, which is absolutely fantastic. It's good that we're training young people to be logical, to have scientific minds, and so on. But it's almost as if you're training them to be academics.
Mm.
And that's not, that's not the totality of a human being. It's good to develop those aspects. My husband is doing a PhD in mathematics. I'm a psychologist, very much into statistics. So I have nothing against mathematics and the sciences. We come from that background. But, creativity, we have to tap into
Mm.
creativity. Encouraging young people to dream and use their imagination, and because
Mm.
that's where innovation comes from. You're encouraging them to think of new ways to do things, and to problem solve. So yeah, I would love to have more aspects of creativity. And when I was actually teaching at the university, my electives were mostly problem based learning. So it's not just teaching them what I have to teach. What I would do is I would tell them, go and develop this. Come and consult with me if you want, and show me your progress. So it's really encouraging them to design something, to learn on their own, to explore the knowledge out there. And really the outcomes that my students get from that, they're not just learning about psychology, and the topic was actually health psychology. They don't just learn about the theory. They actually learn more about where are they going to find the information that they need to solve something. How are they going to solve that? Do they need to talk to people about it? What are the other sources of information that they can tap into, other than research papers and books and so on? So yeah, it's if not, because you've asked me what I would like,
Mm.
for my son, for example, to develop, creativity, problem solving, and even now in terms of body awareness. Like
Mm.
we've enrolled him to a gymnastics class and a theater class. And you would
Mm.
think that we would enroll him in like a mathematics or science stuff. No, no, no. We actually want him to be more aware of his body, of how he can move his body in certain ways.
Mm.
In the theater, how he can use his imagination, his creativity, and be able to express himself, to express his identity through his body. So yeah, since you asked, that's what I would like to see. And if I had the
Love that.
opportunity, me and my husband, we have a bit of a disagreement when it comes to homeschooling. And I said, look, when the time comes, maybe when my son reaches, when he's about to go to secondary school, let's get him to make that decision. Because if I had the choice when I was younger to be homeschooled, I probably would have chosen homeschooling, because it just gives me more creativity and freedom to learn what I want to learn. Obviously, I still have to follow the curriculum that is required by institutions, to get into universities and so on. But if I had the opportunity to choose to be homeschooled when I was younger, I certainly would have chosen that. And I would like my son to have that choice when he reaches that stage.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And it's interesting that you said that. And I'm not surprised, because I find it's an emerging standard here now in Australia around me, that more and more parents are starting to seek the homeschooling factor. And I think it's a great thing that they're taking that responsibility. As you said, even with theatre, and theatre is very powerful, was with our family, and it gave our kids so much confidence to accept themselves, be themselves, speak publicly, problem solve, and learn to be disciplined. So I really admire that you're thinking around there. So tell me, these beautiful books that you've been writing, that you've written, they resonate with me. So how do you, as a person, Emee, how do you handle setbacks? Obviously, you would have experienced setbacks in your life. It's not just the academia that is there. I would believe that you've got a lot more to tell us.
Yes, well, when it comes to setbacks, obviously I'm human, and I'm not perfect. And in the past, before I embraced this entrepreneurial journey, I've actually experienced major breakdowns. Possibly because I was probably hormonal. I was experiencing postnatal depression, but at the same time, I was also struggling with returning to work, and the environment wasn't really conducive to mothers returning to work. So there was a lot of pressure and a lot of challenges that I faced, and I have to say that I didn't handle that stage very well. For me, looking back now, sometimes I think, oh, I wasted all those years. For 2 years I was in a really bad place, really dark moments in my life. But having seen what happened next, it makes me feel as if I had to go through that. I had to experience those setbacks. I have to pass through that dark period in my life. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed in academia forever, because I wouldn't have found a reason to go. I needed that nudge. And okay, it wasn't a nudge, it was a push. And I fell on my face as a result of that. And I'm actually fortunate that I survived, and I get to live to tell the story. Because those were really dark times, and it could have gone into, my story would have been a tragedy if I didn't survive that. But having the time to step away from that situation, now that I've left that particular situation, I can see that I had to go through that. I had to go through that difficult time, because I have made a decision. I've made a conscious decision to change. And having gone through that period in my life inspired me to write my books. If I haven't gone through those times, I would have, I would just know about theory. Being a psychologist, I would know theory of resilience. I would know about, theory in terms of changing your life. Everything will be theory. But because I've gone through it myself, I can see the theory in practice. And having gone through it myself, I can feel more empathy. And I could, I have more compassion for those who are still there, for those who can't just find their way out of those challenges. So for me, how I got out of those dark moments, I think I don't know. I probably just hit rock bottom. You know, sometimes you hear that from people. There's actually no other way to go. You've got nothing to lose, and you know, you
Mm.
just have to move forward. And that's exactly what I did. And just recognizing, picking yourself up all over again, it's actually quite difficult. Admitting that you need help is really important. I've always been proud, I've always been independent, and asking for help wasn't my thing. But you know, some people who've noticed that I wasn't myself anymore, they actually did reach out and offered support even when I didn't ask for it. And I'm truly grateful that there are people who are looking out for me and supporting me, because we need each other. And that's actually where PAME also came from. Because
Mm.
if you just go through life on your own, you may not even notice that you need help. But when you have people around you who care for you and who have that compassion and who are genuinely, you know, supportive and caring people, that's actually a really good way to help you to pick yourself up, you know, when things get
Mm.
rough. And admitting to yourself that you do need help, and accepting the help when it is offered to you. So yeah, that's what I would say. Eventually, when I started to recover, I cleared my head once more. And that's when I started, you know, reflecting about limiting beliefs and forgiveness, not just in terms of forgiving those who have done me wrong, but also forgiving myself for blaming myself for things. You know, it's something that I think many of us carry on our shoulders. But it's really important that you also learn to forgive yourself, and just accept your life in totality and everything. Yeah, it's cliche, but yeah, everything happens for a reason. And I've seen that in my own life, even after having to go through difficult moments. Those difficult moments were necessary, because
Mm.
those difficult moments encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone, you know, to move on, and to build my character and resilience, and keep moving forward.
I love your authenticity. It's very, very powerful, and you've got a fabulous message that my listeners will be able to pick up from you, especially your honesty. And I believe that women uh, I don't believe that women give themselves that permission to be authentic, to say exactly how it is. And you mentioned a cliche, but very much, whilst it might sound like a cliche to some, it's very much the reality of life, isn't it? That life is real and very difficult. And for women, I don't know about in the UK, but certainly here in Australia, it is still very difficult to break out of the male-dominated society, especially where I've lived most of my life in the rural areas. It's totally like that. And I suppose that that ability to get past our tall poppy syndrome, and I'm not sure if you have the tall poppy syndrome in the UK, but it's alive and well here in
What's it
Australia, and
called?
that's the tall poppy syndrome. Have you not heard it?
Not really. What is
Oh,
that?
you'd really love the research around it. So the tall poppy syndrome is where people will always knock someone who is perceived to be doing well. So
Mm.
they knock you, and they'll knock you and knock you until they knock you out. So what we see in Australia, it happens prolifically across sporting, academia, across everything in Australia. And for women, they get a double dose,
Mm.
because it's that acceptance. And there's a movie promoted not long ago about a female jockey here, and we have a national race called the Melbourne Cup, and she won that last year, not last year, the year before, and they said she rode like a girl, and it's called Ride Like a Girl, and it's that feeling by a majority of women that they aren't good enough. And so you talk about limiting self-beliefs. and how that occurs. So I love your honesty about that. And I admire that, and I think we need to hear more people like you, and to hear that story and to say it's okay to trip and fall over, and it's okay to dust yourself off, seek help, and pick yourself back up, and if need be, start on a whole new journey. So I
Yes,
love that. I
certainly.
admire
And
that about
yeah,
you.
with what we've been talking about earlier, Tracy, it's that growth mindset. Again, I'm going back to this
Mm,
growth mindset, because yeah, we're not perfect. We're always going to find ways to improve ourselves. And when we fail, when we make mistakes, that's actually okay. That's
yeah.
actually okay. You just learn how to do things better next time. You learn
Mm.
from your experience, and you just keep moving forward, build new skills, explore new possibilities, and you learn and grow by doing that.
You're right there, and you hit the nail on the head. Failure, the word failure. I'm not sure about you, but for my generation, failure was absolute. If you failed, that was it. You failed. And whereas now we look at failure as that stepping stone to building resiliency. And for me, I actually embrace failure, whereas a lot of people in my field as a high school principal in education, that's not good.
That's
You
not
can't
good.
fail. You cannot fail at all. And I don't doubt for 1 minute in academia it's the same, because it's how the system's marked, isn't it? And
Yes.
that goes
And
back to our education system.
if I can just share something, I hear this all the time from my husband. He's actually tutoring this girl in mathematics. She comes over, and he helps her with mathematics. And the kid is a little bit afraid of
Mm.
numbers, and she's afraid to make mistakes. And my husband will say, "It's okay. Make a mistake. It's okay. I don't mind. Just do it. Make a mistake." Because she will ask, "Is this, shall I do it this way?" And my husband will say, "Yeah, go ahead, do it. It's okay. Make a mistake. We'll see." And I like that attitude, because it's for him, yeah, just go ahead and do it. I'm not going to judge you. That's why you're here. You're here to learn. You develop a new skill. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Just do it, and then we'll see if it works. So I hear this all the time, like for 2 hours they will have the session. I probably should jot down next time how many times he would say, "Go ahead, make a mistake. It's okay. I don't mind." But I love it. Every time I hear, it's like, oh, and I pointed that out to him. Said, "Are you using like a technique?" Because he's also teaching he's a teaching fellow at the university. And I said, "Is this like an educational technique that you're employing?" And he said, "No, that's just how I am. I don't understand why she's so afraid to do it. It's not a test or anything. She can do it. If she makes a mistake, it's okay. At least it's a mistake, right?"
It's a powerful analogy that you've just pieced together there, really powerful, and it's admirable that he looks at it like that, because, I know in Australia, women have been taught maths are fearful of maths, and it's of making a mistake and not to be seen as good enough because you've made a mistake. And especially in that field of maths, that's a great point you've brought up, and that your husband does. And what he's actually doing is allowing her to explore her own potential and let her curiosity
Yeah,
out,
encourages her to
literally.
try it out, do
Mm,
it.
mm,
If it works, at least it works. If it doesn't work, then at least it doesn't work. So yeah, I love it.
yeah.
I love it. I should, yeah. Next
I
time,
like
I think
that
I will
too.
count the number of times. Hey, make a mistake. Don't worry. I'm not gonna judge you. Just do it. Make a mistake.
I
Because
love
yeah,
it. I love it.
she's afraid that she might be wrong.
Mm,
It's okay.
mm.
It's okay. That's why we're here. We're here
Good.
to learn.
I love that. That's really great. So tell me, who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Okay.
Yes.
Well, this might come as a surprise, and I don't actually talk about this that much, but my mom actually inspires
Mm.
me. Okay, she's a
Mm.
loud mouth, she's in your face, and she can be quite difficult sometimes. Hi, ma. She knows that. She knows that. And all her friends, all her relatives, they know that my mom can be quite difficult. But she inspires me because I've seen in her life, how resilient she's been. And she's, when she wants something, she'll actually find her way to actually get it done. I do remember when I was in my final year at university, in the Philippines. I wanted to study and do my master's here in the UK, and I was looking for funding. I was looking everywhere. I went to the States, tried to find ways there, and eventually it's not that I gave up. It's just that my time ran out. It's that, okay, that's it. Not, I did everything that I can. I wrote letters, I applied everywhere. No funding for me. I went back to the Philippines, and when I got back, my mom found a way to finance my masters. She will find a way to get something done. And it does take a lot of strength of character to be able to do that. And that's something that I find truly admirable, for my mom. And I think this entrepreneurial spark, I think it came from her. My sister also tries that. My sister has tried all sorts of businesses, and I think we're getting that spark and inspiration from our mom. I remember when we were kids, we would have a van, and we would pick the kids up from school, like a school bus, but it was our
Yes.
van. We'll pick up our friends and go in our van. But to make a little bit more money, my mom would also sell some snacks, in the van. So that creativity as well, finding ways without ripping people off, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's a win-win situation. And I find that really inspiring, and she just keeps going. And yeah, yeah, my mom does inspire. I don't say that a lot, and it might seem to her that we don't value her, because we actually, I remember, I'm probably one of the more difficult children that she had, as children, because I tend to talk back a lot. And because I speak my mind, even at a young
Yeah.
age, I don't really understand why we can't have a dialogue. Just because you're older doesn't mean that it's the law. We can have a conversation about it. But she might think I'm disrespectful, but I do admire my mom for her strength and for her character and for her resilience, and all her children. Even if people are saying she's a difficult person, that she's in your face, and well, my mom is compassionate, and she's generous and resilient, and I admire her for that.
I love it. That sounds wonderful, and I can understand where you're at there. My mother has just turned 89 years old, and she's just published her first book. And
Wow.
the joy, I was on stage at the end of last year at an event, and I was talking about my 5 micro habits, which you're familiar with. And I said to the group, I'm almost 60 and I can do 70 squats and I can do this and this and this. As I said, my mum is 89. She's just published her first book. And you can see everyone go, oh. And I said, so what's your excuse? What's your excuse? And you can see them go tick, 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 tick. And I love that our mothers were trailblazers. So I'm not surprised that you're doing what you're doing, because you've had this wonderful role model. And I know I'm doing what I'm doing. Likewise, I've had a wonderful, and still have the fortune of having mum.
Yes, and at the same time, okay, my mom is amazing, but having a supportive husband as well, it
Yes, yeah,
actually goes hand in hand. If you see my parents together, and they've been, I don't know how long they've been together now, maybe more than 50 years, because they were
wow,
together
yeah,
even before they were married. So, they've been together for such a long time, and you can see how they just complement each other. You have this strong, you know, um, woman, really strong woman who just wants to get things done. But at the same time, you have this man who's supportive. Well, my dad is actually an electrical engineer, and he has this amazing career in the electric company in the Philippines. He's actually what's the word, professional board top notcher or something like that. So he's one of the best in the country. But you can see that he also has this respect and support for my mom. So it's something that I can also see in my marriage with my husband right now, that
Mm.
I'm, he can see that I'm this strong, ambitious woman, and he's also there to he's there to support me, that despite conventions that women have, they have to stay at home, take care of the kids and so
Yes.
forth. My husband is actually the one who cooks at home, because I don't know how to cook. So he deals with the kitchen. He helps, with my son, taking him to school and all that. So it's really teamwork, and for me, it's inspiring to see that teamwork in my parents, and it's something that I would like, our family now to resonate, to have that balance and teamwork from the mother and the father.
Very powerful, isn't it? That's a great story. So tell me, what's one book that has changed your life?
One book that has changed my life,
Mm.
right? To be honest with you, it's a really practical book.
Yes.
And it's a 99-cent book.
Yes.
it's a, it's a it's a bright pink book, and it's a book by Gundi Gabriel called Kindle bestseller publishing. And I would say that it changed my life because it taught me how to publish my book. As an academic, I knew how to write a book. It came
Mm.
naturally. It was part of my job description. But in the past, all I had to do as an author was to write it,
Mm.
hand it over to the publisher, and the publisher deals with the rest. As a self-published author, after I put my pen down, I have to put my publisher hat on, my marketing hat on, my business hat on, and now I have to say, okay, now how am I going to package this book, and how I'm going to
Yeah.
publish it, how I'm going to sell it, how I'm going to distribute it. It can be quite complicated. It's not something that I was trained to do. But this tiny, bright pink 99-cent book showed me how to do it. And I've done it. And the first time that I published my book, Change Your Life for Good, it got to number one, as a newbie, self-published, first time author, self-published author. I got it to number one. Just follow the steps. It actually empowered me to do it, and do it again, and do it again. And now I'm teaching others how to do it as well. So that that book changed my life, not in the sense of, it's it changed my beliefs or anything, but it just gave me the practical skills and tools to actually write and self-publish my books. And I've done it 3 times now, 3 number 1 bestsellers, and now I'm teaching others how to do that. I've set up my own community, self-publishing made
Mm.
simple. And we have over a dozen number 1 best-selling authors in there already, just following the same launch sequence, having that support, having that encouragement. And, I just find it, I find it amazing how I could learn something and also pass it on to someone else, and, see the same results. And, it absolutely changed my perspective and my life in that way.
It's life-changing. It's a very powerful message you've just shared there. Follow the steps. And I that really resonates with me, because I have my 5 micro habits, and I'll have my what goals, etc. Simple, very simple steps, and you've leveraged that from this book. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
you,
a
you
really
don't
good
really have
message.
to you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And when you actually model after people who've done it before, and people who
Mm,
have done
mm,
it well, you actually learn vicariously. You learn from
mm,
their process.
mm.
Obviously, you'll have to make some tweaks to make it work for your particular situation. But there is a template, there is a sequence that you can follow. And, when you do it, you're more likely to have the same results if you follow it to the letter.
Sounds wonderful. I'm just at the process now of getting ready to publish my first book, and it's been experience. I've just helped Mum publish hers, so I'm not as fearful now for mine.
You've
But
been through it
there was a
yourself.
lot in it. Yes, but I encourage all our listeners to certainly consider self-publishing. It's a fabulous feeling, isn't it?
It's
And
such
to
an
be able to share.
empowering way to do something. It's I've actually been to a writers group at some point, and they were so anti self-publishing, and they were saying things like, self-publishing is mediocre. You can just publish your own book, and it's not the same as when you go to a traditional publisher. Well, what I said to that is, okay, with a traditional publisher, they are the gatekeepers. So you would write something, and they would assess it, and based
Mm.
on whether it fits their agenda, or whether it fits their whatever it is that they're publishing, then they're going to let you through. With self-publishing, it opens up the opportunities to all the authors. And mind you, there are still gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are the readers themselves. The
Yes.
readers are going to decide if your book is crap
Mm-hmm.
or not. With the traditional publishing, the publishers will decide that for you. With self-publishing, the readers will decide that, because they're going to leave their reviews there, and other people are going to know whether your book is any good or not. So yeah, so if they're talking about, if there are people who are ditching the self-publishing route, because they would say, oh, it's poor quality, la di da. Actually, yes, there are low quality books out there that are self-published, but at the same time, there are really amazing books out there that are self-published, and you can see that they are excellent quality, because the gatekeepers are the readers themselves, and they are going to tell you whether that book is good or not. So yeah, I find self-publishing truly empowering. It brings back the power, if you like, to the authors and the readers, rather than just limiting it to those people who have access to those big name traditional publishers, who will screen the books initially before they actually let you get on with it. So yeah, self-publishing, truly empowering. Highly recommend it. However, to be successful in self-publishing, you actually do need to know what you need to do. There are millions of books out there, and to be able to stand a fighting chance in that arena, you need to know how the market works. You need to educate yourself in terms of how the Amazon algorithm works. If you're publishing on Amazon, you need to know a specific launch sequence as well, how to trigger that algorithm, so you can have more visibility, so people can find your book. Because if people can't find your book, if you write an amazing book and people can't find your book, then how are they going to read it if they couldn't find it? So if you don't know how to do that, educate yourself, connect with someone who has done it before, who has results. Follow the steps, and you'll see that you'll get to that status sooner or later. But yeah, it's really important. Educate yourself, learn from those who have done it before, and get the support. You don't need to do it on your own.
That's great advice too. And what I've found with the online world, I suppose, and social media, which has escalated beyond our imagination, the feel and the smell of a book in your hand, I just love them. And I read. I'm a voracious reader, so I read every night, and I work long hours, but I find it stimulates my mind, but also calms me. And the power of a book, and a book in your hand, and written by someone who's taken the care to express themselves, and there is no gatekeeper. I love that. I really do.
It's
And you're
that
so right.
freedom.
And I'm a firm advocate of that self-publishing.
And you know what, Tracy? In this day and age, you have Kindle versions, you have paperback still,
Mm.
and for me, I also have audiobooks. My books are also in audiobook format,
Yes.
and the audiobooks are actually doing really well, especially in the States. I don't know why it's so popular in the States. Maybe they're listening to audiobooks in their cars or what have you, but
Yes.
we have different formats now to share that information. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I feel really grateful that I'm in this journey now, and then I'm part of this this entrepreneurial journey, writing books, teaching others how to write books, applying psychology and helping others as well, from what I know from psychology. It's absolutely amazing, and I'm absolutely grateful for it.
It's wonderful. And the audiobooks are also fabulous for our older generation. And now we have a much larger or older generation who can enjoy the books. So, yes, you are certainly right. And to finish off, could I ask you one question? What is your one non-negotiable thing that you do every day?
One non-negotiable thing that I do every day: gratitude. It's, I have to express gratitude every single day. I think, again, if I go back to, to what I've been through, shortly after I return to work, these really dark moments, I have to express that appreciation and gratitude for life. And having that practice, it just, it does make me feel alive, and it makes me grateful for my life and what's to come. It gives me hope, it gives me satisfaction, and it actually helps me to show that to my son as well, showing him that, this is our life, and we have to be grateful for it. So it's a non-negotiable for me, practicing gratitude every day, actually, from the moment I open my eyes, and be grateful that, I get to live another day. It's something that I try to embed in my life and pass on to other people as well.
You're leaving a wonderful legacy and footprint on this earth, and not just for us as listeners here today to experience, but for your son, that he's got this beautiful role model in his life, and both male and female, your husband as well. So it's very powerful what you're saying. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today in this brilliant conversation. And what our listeners won't know is there's been no preparation and no rehearsal for this. And I know as a fact that this is a rather rare opportunity here that not many people take. They like to rehearse, they like to talk, have pre-conversations about interviews and have questions. But literally all we have done today is been absolutely authentic. And I have spoken to Emee purely from the heart and asked her these questions without her prior knowledge, and we've had this fabulous conversation. So to my listeners, thank you so much for joining us today in our conversation with Dr. Emee Estacio. And tell us, Emee, where can our listeners find you?
Yes, well, they can find all of my books on Amazon. So if you just type in Emee Estacio, you'll probably find all of my books there. But if you want something specific, the first book is called Change Your Life for Good. The second one is Imposter Syndrome Remedy. And the third one is Fear is Not My Enemy. All available on Amazon on print, Kindle, and audiobook. And for those of you who have been inspired to write your own books, I have a free Facebook community on Facebook called Self-Publishing Made Simple. So if you're someone who has this wealth of knowledge or life experience that you would like to share with the world and self-publish, and get it to #1 bestseller on Amazon as well, feel free to join us in our free group, Self-Publishing Made Simple. I'm there live every Tuesday. You can ask me anything, anything you need to know about writing, publishing, and launching to #1 bestseller, and actually follow that launch sequence. You can download our starter kit there and engage with other aspiring authors and experienced authors in our group. So that's Self-Publishing Made Simple on Facebook.
Thank you so much, Emee, and thank you for sharing the time with us today. What I've loved is hearing your authenticity and your honesty, how you shared your life with us, and your personal lessons and learnings as well. And I know that our listeners today will take a lot away from this podcast. So thank you so much. And to my listeners, thank you for joining us yet again on Tully Talks. And we have a wordsmith in our midst today with Dr. Emee Estacio. And I know that you would have thoroughly enjoyed listening to our interview today. So tune in next time, and we'll have another inspirational woman to speak with you. Thank you so much, Emee.